What's going on, everybody? I want to thank you all for joining me today. If you haven't already, please make sure you hit the like button because that is the most important thing that you can do for me on this channel because it helps me in the algorithm to make sure that this video gets pushed out to those that are interested in this type of content. Also, please, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell notification next to the subscribe button so you can be notified whenever I release a new video. And lastly, please make sure you share this video out on your social media platforms. Now, I want to get into today's news. And what I want to talk about today is a situation that occurred in New York a few days ago where a Royal Rumble essentially broke out at a migrant shelter. And it's a migrant shelter that's known for a lot of violent activity and degenerate behavior. So I want to go into this story right now. And before we dive too deep into it, one of the things that I want to highlight the most is that if you pay attention to these news stories, particularly the ones that come out of New York that I've noticed, there's always an attempt to spin the narrative around and push it away from the degenerate behavior that occurs in the migrant shelters by those who are occupying it and shift the blame around to some sort of security guard or other external factors that may have played a role in the situation or that may have been involved in the situation. But what you'll notice is a constant with this type of news is that the shift is always taken away from the migrant. And that's what we're going to see here. And they're going to get into some information concerning the security guard that I personally don't believe. And I'm going to explain to you why I don't believe that situation concerning the security guard in this news clip once I play it. But let's get into it right now. And once again, please hit the like button if you haven't already, and let's go.
All right, we need to tell you about a wild chain of events under investigation on Randall's Island tonight. A fight that turned into a melee outside the migrant shelter there. And wait until you hear who's accused of stabbing an asylum seeker. Here's News 4's Ida Siegel.
Arrest after arrest on Randall's Island this afternoon. Multiple people placed in handcuffs, all of them migrants from the shelter that's set up here. Cell phone video shows a man struggling on the ground as officers surround him.
I need everybody to back up.
More video shows another man desperate to get past the police, yelling, "My brother, my brother."
Oh,
His 24-year-old brother had just been stabbed and was being taken away in an ambulance. This man did not want his face shown on camera, but he says he saw two men get into an argument inside the shelter. A security guard asked them to take it outside, and that's when things escalated and more people got involved. He says he saw a security guard take out a knife and stab a migrant in the neck.
There is no evidence that a security guard stabbed a migrant in the neck. There is no evidence of this at all. And you're going to see that there's no evidence of this at all as the remainder of this news clip plays out. And then we go into the next New York City news clip where they discuss the same situation where this phantom security guard apparently, allegedly, if you could even say allegedly, because they don't know who this phantom security guard is, stabbed a migrant in the neck. That didn't happen. And I'm going to get into why I don't believe that didn't happen in a little bit more detail concerning a different story once I finish out the remainder of this clip. But once again, like I said earlier, with these type of situations, there's always a very strong attempt to divert attention away from the degenerate behavior that is being caused by the occupants of the shelter so that they can put the attention on some other external factor or something or somebody else that may have been involved in the mix after the situation already took place and was underway. All right.
Police could not confirm a security guard was involved, but they
Stop right there. They just said the police could not confirm whether or not a security guard was involved. How can you not confirm whether or not a security guard was or wasn't involved? There's cameras everywhere. People have their cell phones out, and these security guards are on payroll. We all know who was on staff. We all know who was there and present at that time because they had to clock in and go to their location of service as it pertains to them being a security guard. So the very fact that nobody can confirm anything to you until this day, this is something that has just kind of gone away. The narrative of the security guard, the phantom security guard, still exists, but no one's been able to find him. That just goes to show that this is complete BS.
did say the victim was stabbed in the neck.
Do you feel scared?
Well, I don't.
The reality is that that victim was stabbed in the neck by another migrant.
don't know, but I don't see nothing, but
This man tells us he did not see the fight, but he says fights do happen here from time to time, often over theft accusations.
try to take the stuff, the other people, and
Stealing.
just stealing.
So something else that I want to highlight quickly as well, and this did not go unnoticed by me. I saw the little slick move that was made by NBC New York when they started talking about why violent situations occur in these migrant shelters that leads to this, where a fight breaks out with multiple people and we saw someone get stabbed in the neck. What we're also going to find out about this same migrant shelter is that in that same shelter about 2 weeks ago, someone was actually killed by another migrant in that shelter. They blamed it on theft. They say these situations occur because theft is occurring in these shelters. And when they say that and they get into this quick segment on theft, out of everyone involved in a situation, out of all of the video clips that they have concerning what's happening here, they make it a point to show the sole 2 Black migrants that are in that area, right? And we don't even know if they are Black migrants staying in those shelters with them, because what I've noticed is that they tend to separate the Black migrants in New York from the Hispanic migrants. They try not to keep them together. So these could just be Black folks that were just happening to walk down the street. They just live in New York. But I found that very interesting. And I personally do not believe it's coincidental at all whatsoever that when it was time to talk about why these situations happen, and they say it's because of theft, right at that moment when they're talking about theft, this is who you see on the screen. Yeah, that's not a coincidence as far as I'm concerned, especially given the fact when you have so much footage concerning all of the people who were actually involved, and none of them look like me. None of them look like me. But all of a sudden, when it's time to talk about theft and shift blame as to why this is going on over there, oh, now all of a sudden you see me on the screen. Nice try, but I peep what you guys are doing.
Often over theft accusations.
Try to take the stuff, the other people, and
Stealing.
just stealing.
Police say in all 18 people were arrested, but it's still unclear what role they all played in this melee or how it began. The man with a knife who attacked someone is still at large, and that victim is in the hospital. Reporting from Randall's Island, Ida Siegel, News 4, New York.
How is the man that attacked someone with a knife still at large when he was supposed to be a security guard who's on the clock at his place of work on location? You see, that's a phantom narrative once again that exists to simply divert attention away from the degenerate behavior that's occurring by the migrants who reside in the shelter. And this isn't the first time that we've seen a story like this was spun in New York City. There was a story that came out a few months ago, I'll say, right? I think it was back in October of last year, possibly. I think it says it here. Does it say it right here? Let me see what it actually says. It was in September of last year. This story broke. And as you can see here, it says, ex-cop pulled gun on migrants outside Brooklyn mega shelter, video shows. If you let this article tell it, this is just some crazed security guard who, for no apparent reason at all, pulled his gun out on migrants, right? But that's not the case. What happened is, just like in what we just saw earlier, at this mega shelter, a fight broke out. The security guard attempted to break up the fight. And in him attempting to break up the fight, what you then saw, or what occurred afterwards, were the migrants then shift their attention towards him and attempt to attack, jump, and assault him. And in self-defense, he ends up pulling his gun out. And he doesn't point it at anyone. He keeps it pointed to the ground because he is an ex-cop, so he's a professional. He knows how to handle a firearm. And he's not trying to hurt anyone, but he is trying to get them to back up because they are getting ready to attack him. But once again, what happened was that this security guard was attempting to break up a fight. He was doing his job, a fight that broke out amongst migrants. And then as soon as he jumped in the mix to break it up, they diverted their attention towards him to assault him. And I just want to play a little clip of what happened And let me show you this very quickly. And I'll press play. Now, there's not any audio playing right now. And I find it interesting that there isn't any audio playing on this clip right now, because originally, when I first came across this story, there was audio. And what you hear is the gentleman speaking in Spanish saying, kill the black guy, kill the black guy. So it looks like they went into YouTube editor to remove the audio altogether so that you don't hear that. But as you can see, the ex-cop is running away with his firearm in his hand pointed to the ground while he's being chased now by multiple so-called migrants. Look at that crowd that's behind him, that's mobbing up behind him to get this man. And all he was trying to do was do his job. But if you let the media tell it, he was the one that's in the wrong for pulling his firearm on these individuals when he was actually just trying to defend himself and make sure that he can get back home to his family. So now what I want to do is that I want to get into another news clip concerning that same situation in regards to the melee that occurred at that migrant shelter that we were just originally discussing. And I just want us to get a little bit more detailed information on what was going on there, because like I said, that is a particular shelter where degenerate behavior, acts of violence is happening regularly. It happens regularly.
Tonight over the safety and living conditions near a migrant shelter on Randall's Island.
All right, the latest incident caught by our...
Let me rewind that back just a little bit.
Well, new questions tonight over the safety and living conditions near a migrant shelter on Randall's Island.
All right, the latest incident caught by our camera involves a woman being carried away after suffering some sort of medical incident in the freezing cold.
This comes after a man was stabbed yesterday. Jessica Formoso has the latest.
A police presence was visible tonight on Randall's Island, a day after a man was stabbed in the neck. Cell phone video given to us by a migrant shows the chaos. This woman had just walked in when she saw the victim screaming for help. The man was stabbed. He was screaming, saying he was stabbed in the neck by one of the security guards. She did not want to be identified, but
there was no security guard. Knock it off.
Says a group of Venezuelan men got into some type of argument that escalated into a fight.
What did they say? A group of Venezuelan men got into an argument that escalated into a fight. But you keep hearing about this phantom security guard that doesn't exist. And that's outside of the fact as well. Let's not forget, because I'm not letting that go, that in the other news clip, they're putting these guys as the face of theft in the migrant shelter, despite the fact that throughout this entire ordeal, all you have seen is individuals that look like this, who are currently on your screen, who are arrested, being detained, and actually finding themselves hurt and stabbed in the neck, right? Like I said, I'm not letting this go. I'm going to keep harping on that, but let's carry on. There was no security guards.
Saying he was stabbed in the neck by one of the security guards. She did not want to be identified, but says a group of Venezuelan men got into some type of argument that escalated into a fight. Security got involved. You can see them in the video wearing the yellow vests.
Security got involved because security was doing their job, their security. A group of Venezuelan men started fighting, creating a ruckus in a known violent migrant shelter, and they got involved in order to do their job. Once again, yet none of them stabbed anyone in the neck, because apparently this phantom security guard who's on payroll and who clocked in is still at large, right?
18 people were arrested.
Este es el albergue de la matazón.
They call this place the death shelter, said Angel, who arrived in New York Friday morning. He was placed here at Randall's Island, but says from the moment he walked in, people told him to watch his back.
Antes que me vaya a pasar algo a mí.
Before something happens to me, I'd rather be somewhere else. I'm going to ask to be transferred to another shelter, or if they can get me on a flight to another state. Migrants we spoke to say they...
He's about to come to Chicago, ladies and gentlemen. Shout out to all my brothers and sisters on the south side and west side of Chicago. He is on his way to the Chi.
They sleep with one eye open and one eye shut. transferred to another shelter or if they can get me on a flight to another state. Migrants we spoke to say they sleep with one eye open and one eye shut, fearing they will be attacked. This stabbing comes less than 2 weeks after a 24-year-old man was stabbed to death inside this same shelter. We reached out to City Hall asking if they are aware of how unsafe some migrants feel, but we have not heard back. As we were out here,
they feel unsafe, not because of the actual living conditions in the shelters. Millions, tens upon millions of dollars have gone into these shelters. If they're unsafe and feeling unsafe, is due to the degenerate behavior that's occurring by the occupants of the shelter.
reporting on the stabbings, our camera caught the moment a migrant woman suffered a medical emergency. She was unconscious, just kept having seizures, said this migrant who came to her aid but did not want to be identified. The young woman, who they call Dani, has been living in one of these tents steps away from the city's makeshift shelter for weeks. According to those who live with her, they say she was complaining of the cold moments prior to suffering the seizure.
And we still don't know the condition of that young lady who suffered that medical emergency. All we know is that she was taken to a local hospital. At Randall's Island, I'm Jessica Formoso, Fox 5 News.
So it appears that Randall Island is a hotbed for violent activity as it pertains to migrant shelters. That's what's happening in New York City right now. More and more of these situations are seeming to pop up. And like I was saying earlier, just keep your eyes open and watch out for how they like to spin these narratives in order to create a situation that pulls sympathy for you, right? They're trying to get sympathy out of you by saying this place is called the death shelter. There's so much violence that's happening here. Wait a minute. Why is it called that, though? It's not for nothing. It's not just because. It's because the occupants that reside there are participating in degenerate behavior that's creating a environment of violence, that's creating an environment of violence within that shelter. That's what's going on. And with all that being said, that does it for today's news. And I'll catch you guys in the next video. Hit the like button on your way out. Have a great afternoon and peace.